Alignment. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. Alignment is our word of the day.
Alignment. We couldn't find alignment.
You failed to reach alignment.
It just was that alignment of complete alignment.
We weren't able to achieve that alignment.
You never want to be in this situation where you can't find alignment, can't get to alignment.
Failing to reach that alignment. I think I also shoulder a significant responsibility here, and failing to reach that alignment. Ultimately, as Sam has pointed out, this kind of lack of alignment, we failed to reach that alignment.
Came to the conclusion that we did not have a full alignment. We moved on.
That was Sam Kennedy, the president and CEO of the Boston Red Sox, and Craig Breslow, the new chief baseball officer. He's been there 2 years for the Red Sox. They had a media availability yesterday on Zoom, and alignment was clearly on their minds. I want to break down what happened yesterday because it's pretty fascinating. But first, I should tell you, I assume Coco will whisper sweet nothings in my right ear that somebody was in the chat, YouTube, live, nothing personal with David Samson. If you guess the word of the day, whoever is first, you get a piece of free merch at davidsamsonpodcast.com. We'll reach out to you. You reach out to us. We will get it done for you. If you can predict where my head is during a particular day, particular topic, particular word, you're in. Can't imagine that you didn't realize that I would choose alignment. So why is there a media avail to begin with? Because when you trade Rafael Devers, when you trade for Rafael Devers, you meet the media. There's a threshold. When you do like a bullpen trade in the offseason, or you sign a non-roster invitee to a minor league deal, that's a press release. The Red Sox announced that they've acquired blank. You may not even put a comment in. The lowest threshold is the press release announcement. The second one is a press release announcement that has a quote in it. Hey, we've acquired Giancarlo Stanton. Chief baseball officer said, we're welcome and excited to have him in the organization. Great. Then, if you have a trade of medium proportions, sometimes even the AGM will do a scrum with the media before or after the game on site, or the executive who's traveling with the team if the team's on the road, even if the team's at home, AGM. That's sort of a middle of the road, 26-man roster deal, but low down in the roster, maybe a bench guy. Then let's go a little higher. A little higher is where it's just the GM gets involved. That's like a starting pitcher gets moved for a position player, like a Zach Gallen for Jazz Chisholm. That's a big trade, helps both teams. Pure baseball trade, nothing to see here. You get the GM in on that one. Then go a little higher, Jackie Wilson. And what you get is when you trade someone who you signed 2 years ago to a $300 million deal, or when you do a, hey, we're going to tear this down and trade 75 guys to the Toronto Blue Jays, or firing managers, things like that, then you bring in the president. This Devers trade was president worthy, and the Red Sox knew it. So they got together on a Zoom. Here comes the media. Now, you have to know that Sam Kennedy is a friend. I've known him forever. He started with the White Sox right around when the transition was made from Montreal to Miami for me in 2002. Known him a long time. Craig Breslow played for the Marlins. I've known when I was there. So I've known Craig Breslow for a very long time. So I know they take this in the best possible way when I start explaining why this could have been workshopped just a wee bit better. Let's just start with how Sam Kennedy wanted you to feel about this trade.
These decisions are on us. And so we understand that many fans may be feeling disappointment. And so we understand that. In terms of what was missing, it just was that alignment in terms of what we felt we needed from him that would be in the absolute best interest of the ball club. That's a non-starter for us. We have to have that. We couldn't get there, and as Brez said, maybe we need to look back at things we could have handled better. But it's definitely a two-way street, and we didn't get to the alignment that we needed in the best interest of the Boston Red Sox. So we made the decision that we made, and we're also excited about what's coming back. Brez and his team worked tirelessly to upgrade our pitching in this deal. And so appreciative of that. But that was, Rochi, that was the main thing.
I think you really have to, when you're going to do a press conference like that on Zoom, you have to get together and figure out what is it you're trying to communicate to your fans. And the fact that the Red Sox waited a news cycle, they got a real opportunity to meet with their social media department to understand exactly what the issues were and how they ought to discuss them. You can go down a couple of routes. You can go down the sullying route. The sullying route is when you talk the way the Red Sox have talked about Devers since they traded him, and it's been very clear. When you use alignment, what you are saying is that Rafi Devers was not willing to do what we wanted him to do, and he was not going to change. His attitude was such that he was going to be a problem going forward. All the things that we spoke to you about on Nothing Personal, all of them existed, which is why he was traded. However, what people were talking about was, are we better now? Aren't we worse now? Because we just traded our best hitter. We have a hole in our lineup. All right, let's make sure that we explain to the fans that we feel this was a baseball trade. So they talked a lot trying to convince you, and I've done it before, that getting Jordan Hicks, who's on the IL as a failed starter, but moving him back to the back end of the bullpen will be helpful. That having a young 23-year-old starter who's optioned to AAA, who has a chance to be a top-of-the-rotation guy, by getting two low-level prospects, no matter how highly touted they are, that's a hard argument to make. When you have traded with a team who has taken all the money and already rumors are out that that was a factor, all of a sudden the pieces are in place for you to look like a liar. Therefore, when you sit with the media, you start with the following. I can't tell you that we were not going to trade Rafi Devers unless we had the perfect trade. The fact is, we were going to trade Rafi Devers no matter what. The reason we were trading Devers is that we did not feel he was benefiting our ball club, both inside the clubhouse and what would eventually be on the field. Obviously, we are a better team today with Devers in the lineup, but we have to be working not just for today, but for the next number of years in order to take advantage of the window that our great young players are creating. To do it, we didn't want him to be a turd in the clubhouse. To do it, we didn't want our young players to model his behavior. What am I doing right now? This is David again. I'm selling out Devers. Why? Because it was so bad with him that we have no choice. Because what we can't do is say that, hey, we worked tirelessly to get the best deal possible and we love this return. Great pitchers. It's total horse hockey. So go at it straight. So Craig Breslow tried to see if he could do a job of going at it straight. Listen to what he said about the makeup of his team.
You know, we've talked a lot about, for some reason, this team, being an example where the whole was not greater than the sum of the parts. And being great teammates and sacrificing and stepping up for each other and embodying this shared vision. We believe that those are principles that we need to be faithful to. And so, at the end of the season, I think we could look back and say we've won more games than we otherwise would have because of the way that this roster is now able to come together.
Oh no, he had it and then he blew it. I don't understand why he had to say that it's going to be better. It doesn't make sense. So here's the thing. When you are rehearsing what you're going to say, you have to be okay with ending that conversation. The whole is not greater than the sum of the parts. Don't tell the fan base, don't worry, we are going to win more games. We could win more games. We may win more games. There's a good chance of it. The reason why you don't need to add it is because then anything else that's said during the course of the press avail disappears. And the headline becomes Craig Breslow needs a reality check. Craig Breslow and Red Sox delusional about Red Sox being better. There is no way to get your own broadcasters, your own clubhouse, your own fans to believe in the trade. And I'm coming from experience, ladies and gentlemen, because I've had to spin a lot of trades where our team isn't getting better. And I learned over the years, the best way is just to say, we may not be better right now, but I assure you, we are better tomorrow, and tomorrow is coming. And tomorrow may be this season, tomorrow may be next season, but the way our team was where you don't see, and it's always good when you're trying to convince people of something, to tell them that something's going on in a place where they can never see, so they always just have to imagine, because then you can say that anything's going on. Do you know inside of a clubhouse, everybody is standing on their own two arms, and they walk around hopping in a potato sack? Well, maybe, maybe not. But if you say that there is an opportunity here that was too good to pass up because of the situation we were in, instead of talking about alignment 50 times, where you're saying that Devers didn't do what we asked him to do, we tried to get him to do it, he wouldn't do it, so we weren't aligned. You can say alignment one time, and then you can say, this is the reason why we make a trade. Because when you find a team to give you a second chance on a $300 million player, you take advantage, no matter when it is. Second thing, we could be up to the fourth thing, Coca. People are questioning the timing of the deal. Why not wait till July 31st, the trade deadline? Why not see if there's better offers? I told you yesterday, the Red Sox have been shopping Devers since John Henry reboarded his plane in Kansas City after meeting with Devers when Devers would not be a team player. They have been talking to teams about Devers ever since. You can bet your sweet Bippy. 2, if you think that the money didn't matter, then you're not paying attention to the sport, where there is one team where the money doesn't matter in trades, and that's the Dodgers. That's it. The Red Sox are in a position right along with the Yankees, the Cubs, the Astros, the Pirates, and the Marlins. Money matters. When someone is going to take all of that money, including the back end where the contract is not going to be ideal, and you get a few players back with a pulse who have an opportunity and a chance to do something, you take the deal whenever it's ready. And from the Giants' standpoint, they're fighting with the Dodgers. They don't want to waste time with Devers on Boston. They want to get his bat into the lineup immediately. So you just can admit that to your fan base. Hey, this deal came together today. If it had come together a week ago, we wouldn't have done it a week ago. It didn't matter that the Red Sox had swept the Yankees and now have won 4 in a row. Side note. Do you know, as an executive, when you make a trade in the middle of a season, how badly you want to win the next game? A pick of the day last night should have been the Red Sox over the Mariners, because what happens is the excitement that you have in the clubhouse, that you've gotten rid of someone that you want to get rid of, and the players may not admit that, but already 1 or 2 of them did. We'll get to that. but you want to win that next game. Doesn't matter if you lose 10 out of the next 11, you want to win the next game. So the press avail continues on. Questions are coming in. The media is incredulous. It doesn't seem possible why this trade would happen. But then Craig Breslow decided, you know what? I can address the fan criticism. Good for him. But listen to how he addressed it.
A reaction from fans, the criticism that we are taking, the surprise. I do understand all of that. And I also will stand here and say that we would not have made this trade if we didn't think it was best for the organization and the vision and the beliefs and culture that we're trying to create. We have a number of young players who are in the big leagues, and we're really excited about them. And we're very, very deliberate and intentional about the environment that we want to create. And ultimately, we believe that we're positioning the organization to win a bunch of games, both in 2025 and beyond.
So the problem with that whole theory is that, again, he said win games in 2025 and beyond. You want to say that. You don't want to throw away the season. But read between the lines, what Breslow's saying is, you guys may be critical of us, but you don't get what's happening. You don't get how bad Devers was in the clubhouse and outside the clubhouse. You're not understanding anything. So it's not working. So then what do you do when you're the organization? The reason why organizations have players, former players, retired players as special assistants. We had Andre Dawson, Hall of Famer, Tony Perez, Hall of Famer, Jeff Conine, Mr. Marlin. The Red Sox, David Ortiz, Hall of Famer. Why? Why do you have them employed? Do you think it's to make you feel good? It does. Absolutely love watching games. You learn so much. You become so close with them. But moments like these, because what you do is you say to Big Papi, excuse me, this is John Henry calling, do me a solid here. You're going to have to explain to people exactly what was going on because I'm tired of taking the heat. And so David Ortiz did to Ken Rosenthal, our friend from The Athletic, who was a guest on the show last week, gave some quotes that were special. Because remember, David Ortiz was questioning what was going on with Devers and the Red Sox, pretty much in disbelief that there was an issue. But boy, did David Ortiz pop right into place when this trade happened, because he knows where his bread is buttered. And he said, that's a message for all young players who think they turn out to be bigger than the game. I'm not saying that Devers was like that. He's humble. He's a good kid. But sometimes when you're young and immature, you don't realize that. That's quite a message against the player. There is some sulling going on as a way to explain what's going on. But fans would much rather hear from the player than the front office. So David Ortiz, when he comes out supporting the front office in this transaction, it's supposed to take heat off the front office for making the transaction. And so Ortiz's words were chosen carefully. He was talked to about how to position this. How you think it's a coincidence that David Ortiz says, hey, I tried reaching out to him to try to teach him a few things. He never returned my calls. It's pretty common that young players, think about when go back to when you go back to a reunion and the people who are there current day at your high school or college, they're sort of like, get these old people out of here. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that all of our players understood the gravitas of having Hall of Famers around or having Mr. Marlin. Sometimes they didn't pay attention. Sometimes they'd never heard of them. There's all sorts of scenarios that come up, and that's just life. But the reality is that Ortiz carried the water for John Henry and for Craig Breslow and Sam Kennedy. Why? Because Ortiz was pretty simple to explain it. It's business. In business, things happen. When you've got a lot of money involved, sometimes you pay for what you expect, and sometimes it doesn't work out. It's nothing personal. It's a part of business. That was David Ortiz trying to explain to fans why this trade happened. The Oklahoma City Thunder are 48 minutes away from a title. Did you get a chance to watch Game 5, the pivotal Game 5, or as we like to call it, Game 1 and a 2 out of 3? Looked like it was going to be the same type of game. Oklahoma City with the lead. Pacers come back, win it at the end with Haliburton. The problem is Haliburton did not get a field goal at the end of the game. Wait a minute. Haliburton didn't get a field goal at the beginning of the game. Hold on one second. Haliburton didn't get a field goal. Let's hold off on the LeBron Jordan talk because, of course, we're a small team here, and Jack Koch and I did not discuss this pre-show, but I would wager dollars to a jelly donut that LeBron, Jordan, in their entire playoff career, and you know what? We could probably name a few others. I'm going to put Patrick Ewing in there. Just that's a funny one to put in, isn't it? Never had a playoff game without a field goal. Just throwing it out there. I may be wrong, but you're probably going to check while we take a break, which is not now. What I was fascinated by watching this game is thinking about roster construction. We had touched on it with the Desmond Bane trade out of Memphis into Orlando yesterday. But watching Indiana and Oklahoma City play and thinking about their GMs and thinking about what it took to put two teams on the court who are clearly the two best teams in basketball, and you can't always say that in a final series, though I could argue pretty persuasively the NHL and the NBA has gotten it right this year with the two top teams in each of those respective leagues. But when you've got Jalen Williams, who's giving you 40 points and gets on a list of players to score 40 in a finals game that is really, really small because it's really hard to do, and you complement it with SGA giving you 31, which was his 15th 30-point game, you're in a position of this postseason. You're in a position where your depth is just too good. Your athleticism is too good. Your defense is too good. In order for the Pacers to win this series, they will have to do something that is doable, though difficult. You hold serve in Game 6, and then you come back Sunday, June 22nd, and you win a Game 7 on the road in Oklahoma City, where the only time they lose is when miracles happen. I'm talking like 1980 Miracle on Ice type stuff. That's how hard it is to get Oklahoma City at home. They had 2 tries to do it. They're down to 1. The more likely scenario is that the series is over. And if Oklahoma City wins Game 6, we'll get our way to see right. That'll be good. But then will be the most important time for the Pacers organization. Because when you don't win a championship, you have to think to yourself, did we do it wrong? We were in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago. We were in the NBA Finals last year. This is them talking next year. Is there anywhere else to go other than winning the title? There's not. So should we switch out pieces? Do we believe in who we are? When you construct your roster and you see the results that you want, but you don't quite get to the top, the best GMs and the best team presidents don't tinker except at the margin. Tinkering at the margin is when you can have a bench player moved in or out. You can have a fifth starter moved in or out, but you keep the core together. Just because the Indiana Pacers are now trailing in a series for the first time, and they haven't trailed all season, all playoff season long. Feels like a full season. The belief in what you're doing has to rule the day. There is such pressure, folks, to make a change, to do something because you're disappointed. Are you with me at all? Are you thinking about Jimmy Dolan and Tibbs? Are you thinking about teams that don't quite accomplish everything, like getting the ring, and then they feel like wholesale changes are going to be required? So now you're on to the difference between a good front office and a bad one is knowing when it's the right time to make a move and knowing when it's not. The Boston Red Sox gave you an example today of understanding the right time in spite of other people not realizing it was the right time. They gave you a clinic in what the right time is. You're going to be looking at one of these front offices in the NBA because whoever loses this series is going to be going through it. And you're going to try to figure out for yourself whether it was the right time. And we'll only know, it's what I love about sports, as time unveils itself. No, we didn't, Coca. All right, I can't take a break on this. He's telling me that Patrick Ewing went 0 for 10 in 1994. That's the Eastern Conference Finals. I guess that counts. That's not a, did I say a finals game or a playoff game? I said a playoff. God dang it. All right, well, let's recut that very quickly. Okay, 4-8-6-9. I could give you a list of players who have not scored a field goal in a playoff game who are considered the best. And the only one on that list would be Patrick Ewing. For Tyrese Haliburton, you can't possibly go through a playoff game and not get a field goal. You just can't do it and expect to win, period. All right, can you work that? Just remove the part where I said Patrick Ewing would be on the list with Jordan and James, because I'm sure I'll get crushed for that, even though he should be, except for the rings part and the GOAT part. All right, let's take a break. I'm too upset with what just happened. How did... I'm reeling. Welcome back to Nothing Personal with David Samson. Before the break, Coca just got me in a way that I don't like being gotten with my favorite Patrick Ewing, who did have a donut in the Eastern Conference Finals. I happen to remember that game. Thank you for being with us. If you guessed alignment was the word of the day, you get some merch because you're right. Don't forget to guess our word of the day, because we do one every day, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. live. You can download. If you're listening to this, please subscribe. Tell your friends what we do every day. If you're watching on DKN, thank you. Don't forget to go to YouTube, hit subscribe there. And if you're on YouTube right now, thank you. Don't forget to check out DraftKings Network. They got a great lineup. Listen, we're all about cross promotions. So I'm sitting at the Knicks game against the Pacers, ironically, in what would have been the conference finals. No, that's not true, Coca. I was at a Pistons game in round 1, and I turned around, and there was Bill Bradley just sitting there with his daughter watching a game. Bill Bradley, whose name is in the rafters because his number's retired. Bill Bradley, the NBA champion, the senator from Jersey. And I got the nerve to talk to him because he wasn't getting any attention at all, where the other Knicks alums were part of, Celebrity Row and who's seen who. Bill Bradley, if you're my age, he's a hero. So I went to talk to him, and he said, and of course what I did, because Coca has told me that's what you do when you have a show, Senator, would you like to be on Nothing Personal? And he said, well, I would certainly consider that, but have you seen my movie yet? And I said, no, but I'll watch it for sure and review it. And so I did. It's called Rolling Along. It's on YouTube. It has like over 12 million views. It is a one-man show, Bill Bradley, talking to you, the audience, about his life. He's in a cardigan sweater. Is that the button-down sweater? It's a crew neck sweater. He's on stage, tall man. You don't get shorter with age. I'm getting taller. Well, you may get some shrinkage, but Bill Bradley looks amazing. He's on stage, and he goes through his childhood. He goes through how he picked up a basketball. He goes through why he picked up a basketball. He goes through what he learned in life lessons as a basketball player turned politician. He talks about what it means to roll along. And the reason I wanted to review this today is the concept of rolling along. Think about it in sports terms. If you're not watching this right now, you don't see that I'm putting you to sleep. No, I'm not really hypnotizing you. I'm showing you rolling hills up and down with my hand, gesturing in a way to indicate the ups and downs of life, but it continues to move you forward like a flowing river. And when you're in a flowing river, you have to go with the river. However, when you are rolling along, you have an opportunity to grab a branch, rest. You have an opportunity to figure out which part of the river you want to be in. You have an opportunity to fish from that river. You have an opportunity to clean yourself in that river. You have an opportunity to die in that river. All of the things that exist, all of the life lessons or things that can happen in a rolling river. No, a river does not run through it. But the point is that Bill Bradley makes so way better than I am, is that when you don't know what you're going to be and you know that you have a passion to play basketball and you have an opportunity to get an education at Princeton and you have the opportunity to play as a professional, but know that that's not your whole chapter, that you in your whole life, it's a chapter, and you keep rolling along purposefully, and then all of a sudden you are a thought and opinion influencer, and then you look back on your life well lived and the impact you've had. Check out Bill Bradley's Rolling Along. You're not going to be sorry. You're also not going to be sorry if you watch Mobland. Mobland is on Amazon. It's on Paramount Plus. I will be reviewing that tomorrow. I finished it yesterday, and wait to see how I review it. I got the call yesterday, Coca. It was a good call. I enjoyed it. The call came in from CBS. Hey, can you analyze, get on late at night after Shohei Ohtani pitches, talk about his outing? We're going to go live right when he's done pitching. I told you yesterday that he wasn't going to go above 75 pitches. I had to wait to see from yesterday that he wasn't going to go above 75 pitches. I won that so fast your head will spin, and I knew I won it the minute there's a Tatis Sinai hit right off the bat. I knew it when Ohtani was throwing 100 when he shouldn't be throwing 100. He should be sitting at 95 at best, and he's throwing 100. I saw it when he got to 10, 15, 20, 25 pitches. There's no way he's getting 75 because there's no way he's getting a second inning. So Ohtani, it was quite a bit of pageantry. A bit like a playoff game. Got the attention of MLB Network, got the attention of everyone on X, all of the highlight shows. Having Ohtani pitch for the Dodgers for the very first time. Ooh. Why does that matter? Because when he was signed by the Dodgers, it was to be a two-way player. When Shohei Ohtani had his second Tommy John, there was a question whether he would ever be two-way again. What happened last night should not take away that question. Why? Because what happened last night is what, for any other player recovering from a second Tommy John or even a first, that outing happens in the minor leagues. But there's a rule in Major League Baseball. It's a funny rule because it started in about 2022, maybe. And it's only about Shohei Ohtani. The rule is that if you are a certified two-way player, which Shohei Ohtani is, then you take up one roster spot, not two, because you're one person, one heartbeat. But here's the kicker. The Dodgers have a roster limit like everybody else of 13 pitchers. Shohei Ohtani doesn't count toward that number. That means Shohei Ohtani is a 14th pitcher. And it's not like he's just pitching. So it's not like you're putting a 14th pitcher on your roster and then having a thin bench, because he leads off, for crying out loud, every game. So this rule benefits the Dodgers because it allows them to do Ohtani's rehab at the big league level. Now, I grant you, it's damn impressive when he goes out in the top of the first and he's dialing it up at 98. He's getting outs, but he's giving up hits and a run. And then he gets to the dugout. He puts on his elbow pad, his helmet, and he's leading off the next inning like the bottom of the first. Now, he did only end up pitching one inning, which is perfect if you're in February. Not ideal if you're in June. The real issue will be what happens this morning when Ohtani wakes up after he gives you 10 large, 10 hours of sleep at least, maybe 12. He'll wake up and he'll see, oh, please, no soreness. Please, just normal. Make everything normal. Calls into the trainer, who calls the GM, who calls the president, because we're all sitting at our phone like we are waiting for a acceptance into college. We are all sitting there saying, please, how does he feel? And then we sit him for 4 days, and then he comes in, and he can be the opener again and give you 2 innings if he doesn't screw up the first inning so badly, maybe even 3 innings. And then we'll do it again and again. So right now, he's simply a bullpen arm. There is an opportunity going forward when he will be a starting pitcher again, but he was not a starting pitcher last night. I get it. It's great PR where you say Ohtani starting for the Dodgers. I would have preferred Truth in Advertising for them to say Ohtani opening for the Dodgers, because that's all he did. It was successful, I guess, giving up 1 run, ERA of 9. The fact that he could pitch that inning, not as a position player, because that's in garbage time, still get 2 runs batted in as a designated hitter. You had me at hello when it comes to Ohtani. What I've been critical of are the people who believe that he is this some sort of invincible player. Tommy John is the great equalizer. When we had guys coming back from second Tommy John, or even first, you want them not to be going all out. A game situation is stressful enough. It can't be replicated in a sim game. It frankly can't be replicated in an empty ballpark on a rehab assignment. Only the teams with crappy attendance could recreate what game situations were on a rehab assignment. The Dodgers cannot. Way too many fans. Ohtani himself acknowledged he was excited. He said he wanted to throw 95, 96, but he couldn't because he was so happy to be on the mound. For me, it's good. Pitched an inning, gets through it. Dodgers are in good position, but we are a long way from saying Ohtani is a full 2-way player and an MVP/Cy Young. Nothing personal pick of the day. Did you see that the Pacers plus 9.5 was almost the great backdoor cover of all time? Although at 95-93, midway through the fourth, I'm feeling really good about myself. And then Oklahoma City goes on one of these runs, which they go on, although all teams go on runs these days in the NBA. But you just felt this one was different. You felt as though there was no way they were going to do it again and lose at home and have to go to Indiana down 3-2. You just saw it happening. And then they have a 12, 14, 15-point lead. I've got the Pacers plus 9.5 ready to roll. The Pacers are down by 11. It's garbage time. There's 25 seconds left. They've got the ball. I just need one of those last-second layups. Threes, doesn't matter. It would cut it to 9 and a backdoor. But no, they missed. Oklahoma City gets the ball, runs the clock out. Boom, we lose. We're 78-82. What do we got tonight? Game 6. You know it's total MT right now because the Panthers are on the cusp of winning the cup. You know that I got to do the mush. The mush pick is you take the Oilers plus 130, and if I lose the pick, the Panthers are Stanley Cup champions. If I win the pick, that means I win the pick, and we've got a Game 7 Friday night. My standpoint, and this can upset Coca, I get it. But my standpoint, I can't lose tonight. But Oilers plus 130, I think, is the better pick. The fact is the Panthers have led that series, I don't know, 230 out of the 300 minutes. That may be right. It doesn't matter. I love those stats. It's like Indiana didn't have a lead in Oklahoma City in game one, except with 1.3 seconds to go or whatever the number was. Well, that's a good second to have the lead. So the Oilers are just down 3-2. They've got to win in Florida. The biggest decision that's being made that has not been announced is whether you're going to go with Picard or Skinner. For me, it is simple. I'm going back with Picard. Once you've made the goal change, I would just keep it at that. I don't like the back and forth. I would assume that they will make an announcement after the morning skate. Who is going to be the goaltender? It is not optimal that you don't know your number one goaltender in a series against the Panthers, that's for sure. But they've managed to get through it, and I think the Oilers will force a game 7. Why? Because that series feels game 70, where to me, the Pacers series with Oklahoma City feels more game 60. We'll find out. I want to touch on something that happened yesterday on a story, and I'm a cynical guy because I'm proven right a lot when I feel cynically about things. I'm trying to change, except in order for me to really change, I have to be proven that my hypotheses are wrong because I'm always testing them. Do you know yesterday? I mean, it seems so crazy, but Ippei Mizuhara, do you remember him, Shohei Ohtani's interpreter? He reported to prison to serve his 57-month sentence yesterday. The day that Ohtani pitched for the Dodgers for the first time. You remember all this started right after Ohtani signed with the Dodgers. They were playing in Korea, and all of a sudden, the guy we always saw next to Ohtani, his interpreter Ippei, is stealing money from him, gambling it away, dealing with loan sharks and illegal betting schemes, and then the guy disappeared faster than a magic eraser board after your parents get home and you've been playing spin the bottle. Gone. No mention of the guy. Well, yesterday, he was back in the news. If you're the Dodgers, is that the plan? No way. Maybe I'm the only one, Coca. Maybe everyone else totally ignored it and thought it didn't make a difference. But I thought it was quite something. Coca, did you see what Gage Wood did yesterday by chance? Am I the only one focusing on the Men's College World Series? I guess we're all a victim of things that we do. And I've been to the College World Series, and it's damn cool. What Gage Wood did yesterday doesn't happen very often, as in twice before and not once since 1960. Gage Wood of Arkansas threw the third no-hitter in Men's College World Series history. What is pretty amazing is that my first thought upon seeing Gage Wood was, I assume that's Kerry Wood's son, because we got shoved by Kerry Wood until we beat him in a game 7 in the LCS. But man, was he good. And I'm used to seeing kids of guys that we competed against or players we had. I'm used to seeing their kids in the big leagues. Trust me, Griffin Conine, Jeff Conine is the number one mind blower of all time. But seeing Gage Wood, I just figured, turns out, not the case. However, yesterday, coincidentally, was Kerry Wood's birthday. Strange. A lot of strange things in the world. But it's pretty cool to strike out 19 and throw a no-hitter when only 3 people have done it. And the reason why I think it's cool is that you put yourself in a position to have a hook. What hook am I talking about? Is that we send a bunch of scouts to the College World Series because that's where we're getting our players from. I can't do it, Coca. I can't do it. I'm not doing it. I can't mislead anyone. I used to. That was the old David. That was President David. This is host David. It doesn't matter what you do in the College World Series because the scouts, the teams, they already know exactly who they want in the amateur draft that's coming up. They know exactly who's on their board. And frankly, our view is we didn't want pitchers we were going to draft in the College World Series. We didn't want pitchers to get even more innings, not for us and our system. If anyone had a thought to take Gage Wood, it doesn't get helped. It doesn't get hurt. It's not that an owner would watch the College World Series and say, hey, is Gage Wood on our board? Baseball is a funny game that way. When you go 4 for 4 with 2 home runs and 2 doubles in front of a scout who's watching you, it is only incrementally better, and I mean in the tiniest way, microscopic, than having a scout there and going 0 for 4 with 4 Ks. And you may think that's totally counterintuitive. Except what I'm telling you is scouts look at players over multiple games, multiple days, multiple trips. Because if you get seduced by the moment, the prisoner of the moment, you end up drafting people who have no chance to work out in the big leagues whatsoever. Because that is the strange beauty of baseball, where you can give a 4 for 4 and an 0 for 4, and it actually doesn't tell you what kind of player you are or will project to be. So I don't want to yuck on Gage Wood's yum, except just be honest and tell you he is who he is, for better, which is better, or for worse. Check out the College World Series if you can. Don't forget, please, that on Wednesday, which is tomorrow, we are going to have a So You Want to Talk to Samson hour of the show. You can actually go on your phone and dial 631-377-4869. And if you do that, you can maybe make the show. Before we take a break, I want to revisit one thing from yesterday, if you don't mind, because I got a call from someone within baseball who thought that I was completely out of my mind as it relates to Dave Martinez. And I don't want to show off or anything, but you remember I told you that if the Nationals get swept by the Rockies after what Dave Martinez said yesterday about coaching staff and how it's the players' fault, I want to remind you that the Nationals blew the game last night and the Rockies came back to win. They gave up 2 home runs in the 9th inning. They've now lost 9 in a row. I don't see a scenario where Dave Martinez cut that 12-24-69. I do not see a scenario where Dave Martinez will make it. And we did not do the official wait to see yesterday. Did we, Coca, about Dave Roberts? I don't think we did. But we're doing it. We just did Dave Roberts again. All right, in the minute left, Coca, hear me out, please. Wait to see. Dave Martinez will not be managing the Nationals next year. That is an official wait to see from today, June 17th, as the Nationals are in the middle of a 9-game losing streak, as they are losing to the Rockies. I may get this right way sooner than the offseason, but he is done as manager of the Nationals. After the break, we are coming back with a guest, Katie Phang. Katie Phang, you may have watched her, The Katie Phang Show. She still has a show. You may know that she is the smartest person who will ever be a guest on this show. And we are going to talk all things that will interest you. And we'll do it all in just about 3 minutes. We'll be back. Welcome back to the second hour of Nothing Personal. Thank you very much for joining us, for subscribing, for watching, listening, everything you're doing. And I've been looking forward to today. We have Katie Phang with us. Now, not everybody gets to talk to Katie Phang, who is an independent journalist, a trial lawyer, and I would say on my top 4 of the smartest people I know in the world. And I wanted to have her as a guest today because there's a lot going on that she can talk about a lot more clearly than I can, and it's important stuff. Katie, welcome to Nothing Personal.
Well, top 4? Shit, top 4.
You're top 4. Are you swearing on a live show?
I'm sorry.
Already?
I know, sorry. It's early. Yeah, I guess I'll take top 4. I guess I got to work on it then if I can get up the food chain of top 4.
Oh, I think that's pretty above average to start with. And listen, here's why we needed to have you on. Because what we do, we're sports, we're business, we're culture, entertainment, politics.
Yeah, you guys are everything. Yeah.
We really need our audience to understand a few things because there's a bit of misinformation out there about different things that are happening in our country. And what we're trying to do, Katie, now this may be different for you because we're going to focus on the independent nature of you being an independent journalist. Okay. We're not coming at this totally from one side or the other. We're trying to talk about what is real and what is not. And I want to start with something, and I want to start with what is happening with people when they are being stopped on the street, when they are being asked for their papers, when they are asked for ID. Are they in danger of actually being deported? Is that what ICE is doing? Could it be anybody walking at any particular moment and all of a sudden their life just gets completely blown up?
Yeah, so all kidding aside, David, number one, thank you for having me. And hey, Coca. Look, here's the deal. I agree that everybody should only be dealing with facts, evidence, truth. I like to say that that's my currency. That's what I traffic in. So here are the facts. In some instances, there's not even an effort, David, by Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement and other federal agents. Let me be clear. There have been aid provided by other law enforcement agencies and departments to be able to effectuate the deportations and in some instances, kidnappings. And the reason why I say that, David, is because some of these people that are being stopped and taken into custody are either the wrong people or they had legal status because they had gone through the process of applying for asylum, for example, or they had temporary protected status, and all of that has now been revoked. And so even though they thought that they were traveling in a legal path to be able to obtain citizenship, because of revocations or because of changes that were made in this administration, they are now deemed to be, quote, illegal, and that is the reason why they're being rounded up. The problem that we have, and I think anybody, and it really shouldn't make a difference what your political affiliation is. The problem we have is there's a lack of due process. And that phrase gets thrown around a lot. And a lot of people make it a punchline, and they really shouldn't, because it doesn't make a difference who you are, Democrat, Republican, Independent, or otherwise. You should always want to have the due process that you're afforded under the Constitution. And what I keep on saying to people is the following. The United States Constitution does not make a distinction between being a U.S. citizen or not a U.S. citizen when it comes to due process. If you are here on United States soil, you are allowed and you are afforded the opportunity to be able to defend who you are and your ability to stay here on U.S. soil before you're summarily sent somewhere else, whether it's back to your home country or whether it's sent in some instances to a country that's not even your home country. We have people that are residents that are being sent to other countries. And so what you need to be aware of is we are seeing so many videos of people that aren't even wearing identifiable markings that show that they are law enforcement. So it's obviously creating an environment or an atmosphere of fear and terror because we're seeing all these videos in social media where people are being just taken into custody, arrested, and plainclothes officers. And listen, I will say this till the end of the day. I'm a big fan of law enforcement. I always say when you have a problem, you call 911, you call the police. The police are there to protect and serve. But it's also creating this fear and this hostility of, I don't know if you're even a real cop. I don't even know if you're a real federal agent and you're taking me into custody.
That's something that obviously you heard from yesterday's show, and everybody's talking about what happened in Minnesota. and how people, if you dress up as a police officer, you still may be the person who's doing the murdering. I want to explain to people the concept of due process, because you
Please.
touched on it by saying it is a huge, important issue. I'm a lawyer, not practicing like you, but I went to law school, passed the bar, and I get asked this a lot. What is the most important freedom you have? What's the most important right that you have? I'm asked that. And people would say freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of religion. And I actually say the most important thing for me is that I'm guaranteed due process. And what I mean by that is that I don't have to risk, and it's not because of my color, even though people argue it is. In theory, I don't have to risk ever getting in trouble without the opportunity to prove that I'm not that guy, or I'm not the one to have gotten in trouble. So due process to me matters. Talk about how there's none, because I've got stories of people, and whether it's nannies or people who are helpers of homes out on Long Island, who are getting stopped. They are asked for ID. They show ID. It's 1 minute, and then that's the end of the conversation. There's others who are getting stopped, don't have ID, and it becomes a little more complicated. Why is that not the proper due process?
Well, let's start with this baseline question. Do you have your passport on you when you walk around, David?
In a foreign country, every second.
Okay. But if you're not in a foreign country, if you're in the United States and you're in your car, you're walking down the street, do you have your passport on you?
I do not. No.
And you're a United States citizen, right?
Yes.
So envision
I love being examined by you, Katie. I love this. Keep going.
But here, and you are obviously not of, let's just say you're not of a Hispanic heritage, right?
I am quite white and Jewish.
Okay. So while you walk down the street with your white privilege, you are probably not going to be worried that you're not carrying your United States passport or social security card or something of that ilk on you. So if you're stopped by law enforcement, how do you prove who you are? You'll probably produce your driver's license, for example, right? So in this instance, if you don't have your US passport, you're not going to be fearful that you're going to be taken into custody, because to your point, you're going to be given a chance to be able to say, no, you've got this wrong. You're looking for David Samson with a P, right? I am not David Samson with a P. Like if you are sitting in, I mean, and I've been sent a lot of these videos too, David, like they're going to places like Home Depot, and they're going and they're just rounding up people that happen to be black or, brown, and they're taking them into custody, and they are asking the questions after they've taken them into custody. That is a serious problem that we have here. They're also going to people's places of work. Now, the hypocrisy is pretty rank, I think, if I may, that there's now going to be a backpedaling by the Trump administration as to immigration, customs and enforcement raids on hotels and other agricultural facilities. You have to ask yourself, well, why? Well, because they've been doing that. They've been going to hotels and restaurants and service industries, and they've been taking people into custody. And here's the thing. They are taking people into custody, and they are not giving them the chance to appear in front of a judge to be able to say, my name is X. By the way, yes, I may be here in the United States and I may not have proper documentation, but if I'm returned to this country, I actually may be killed, I may be persecuted, I may be prosecuted. I need the chance to be able to stay. Now, of course, what's everybody's immediate retort? Well, you should have done that in the first place. Well, some of these people did. Some of these people did go through this process. Or listen, some of these people have been here for 30 years and they've got kids that are in their 20s and they haven't had any problems, and they've been working and paying taxes, and their kids are here and their kids are United States citizens. I think what's been kind of captured in terms of being completely distorted is the following. And I'll speak from being a place as a Democrat, and I'm not doing this to politicize.
Yes, you are.
But I'm here to make a point. As a Democrat, I don't want somebody who's going to be committing crimes in the United States. I'm a former prosecutor. You know that, David. I spent half my career prosecuting criminals, and really bad ones. I don't want criminals to be living here. So there has to be a distinction drawn. I think everybody agrees. You don't want a criminal here who's going to be, hurting people, hurting our loved ones, and doing bad things. But that also applies to United States citizens too. I don't want a U.S. citizen committing a crime, hurting my family, hurting my loved ones. They should be duly prosecuted too. There's no distinction being drawn. Right now, they're just saying because you are from a certain country or because you look a certain way, we're just going to say, you know what, we're not going to keep you here in the United States. And that's what's un-American about what's happening. That's the lack of due process. Due process says, I get the chance to be heard before you do something. Listen, there's a famous guy, Kilmar Garcia, Abrego Garcia. Everybody talks about him, and they should, although there's hundreds of people that are now being in custody and that are being deported. The reason why Kilmar Abrego Garcia is so important is he needs to be brought back to the United States, David, so that he can actually explain why he should not be in a certain place, right? And if at the end of the day, there has to be a ruling, and by the way, in his instance, there was a ruling by a judge that said he should not be returned to his home country. But if at the end of the day, after he's had all of this chance, David, and a judge says, you know what, you can't stay here, then you know what, goodbye. And if you're an illegal reentry, you should be prosecuted for being an illegal reentry. But
Katie, so your real argument here seems to be that you don't mind the result, you mind the process getting to the result.
100%.
And that's an interesting point of view to have.
It has to be a distinction with a difference, does it not? Do I believe in an amnesty pathway? Sure. For people that have been here and that haven't been committing crimes and have been participating in the United States democracy in terms of the process of being in the American dream? Absolutely.
But as a prosecutor, Katie, you've prosecuted and had convicted innocent people.
No.
You're going to say not one time did you get a conviction of someone who was innocent? Not one time?
Did I take somebody to trial that was found guilty that was innocent?
Yes. Do you believe, let me try to frame it another way so you don't get upset with me. Do you believe there's anyone in prison who's innocent?
I'm not upset. I'm actually thinking to myself, if you took a plea, did you take a plea? Did I force you to take a plea? I didn't force you to take a plea.
No, I'm talking about a jury result. And I'm talking about in prison. The argument that you may have against capital punishment, the argument that many people would have is, hey, some people are innocent. In law school, Katie, I worked with Barry Scheck, the Innocence Project. The whole thing is people who are in prison whose DNA shows that they didn't do it. That must, to your core say, we can't have that. You can't have innocent people. So isn't your issue that you're trying to make it so nobody gets deported or is fearing deportation or is in danger of deportation? We can't have anybody in that position who doesn't deserve to be in that position. Isn't that your main theory?
We can't have anybody in any position where they're not afforded the opportunity to be a part of the process that's been set forth that's supposed to be applicable to all of us, regardless of our citizenship. That's my position when it comes.
Okay, but then are you saying the people who went through the process who still get then put in prison who are innocent, is that then okay? So if we did have a process in place, and I'm certainly not saying that we do, but if we did, then we have to live with the results of that process.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So
because here listen, and I don't speak in universal, wholesale concepts with no exceptions, right? But here's a little bit of how on both sides the logic is kind of tough, right, on this, because I agree that I do think the system does fail every once in a while, but I do think that it's the whole social contract, right? I live here with you in this place and we agree to be a part of a social contract. And part of that social contract includes living and breathing and abiding by certain laws and regulations and policies, et cetera. That's what we agree to do. If you don't want to be a part of that process, then you're not a part of the social contract. And so you're not a part of being in our system. So I think I have to say that what's happening here is people that are not being given the chance, and I agree that sometimes people either get railroaded or there's errors made or whatever. But what's interesting, David, is people are not even given the chance to be a part of even that flawed process. In this instance, they are not even given a chance to defend themselves or to be able to present a case in that flawed process. So if you and I can agree that the process isn't perfect, which it isn't, because to your point, you have clear examples of when the process has failed. I am not saying in any way we shouldn't live without the processes or the system, because I think that's anarchy, right? I don't think we should have that. And so I think that people are not even given the chance to be a part of that process when they are being taken into custody and summarily locked up and shipped out of the country in the dead of night. That's the other thing that we talk about, and you as a lawyer remember this. We talk about consciousness of guilt. And when I argue in front of a jury, I tell a jury, look at this person's actions or conduct. That's evidence of their consciousness of guilt. They did something to be able to hide what they were doing, or they wanted to be able to, obscure what they've been doing because they know what they're doing is wrong or has been wrong. In this instance, when you're taking people away in the dead of night and flying them on planes to God knows where, and then you're like, sorry, don't have them in custody anymore, can't bring them back. And then in the instance of somebody like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, you now indict him after the fact. And they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we couldn't bring him back, but now we can bring him back. And when we bring him back, we're going to prosecute him. And by the way, he's probably going to end up getting, deported in the end again. I mean, it's what you want to have is you want to have a level and fair playing field, David, and that's not happening right now for a large subset of our American population.
Well,
And I don't think anybody should want that, period. That's it. And the irony is you and I see this a lot. You're not in South Florida as much as you were before, but the irony is we see people that are absolutely just up in arms and upset about it when they or people that they are affiliated with voted for this to be the kind of this system that's in place.
So I wanted to get to that, if you don't mind, because what's happening now is that people are surprised at certain things that Trump has done, President Trump has done. They're surprised that Project 2025 is actually the playbook that they're using. They're surprised that Elon Musk both was a friend and now is a foe. They're just surprised at all sorts of things. And to me, Trump has been great in that regard because that was exactly what he ran for office, saying he was going to do. So all I've ever asked for out of politicians is to say what you're going to do and then let the people decide. And
that is the irony, isn't it?
Well, the amazing irony is that the scores of millions of people who voted for him, and now the question is, are they getting what they wanted or are they not? And that will manifest itself in the midterms and then again in the next presidential election. But what I wanted to talk to you about and bring it around to is the process. Forget the allegations of elections being stolen. Just forget any of that, because when you win, you don't allege it. And that is normal on a sports field and normal everywhere. But
and yet he still does. But go on. Yeah.
Well, he's not for the one he won, only still the one he lost. Wait, did I miss that? Is he saying the election was rigged in the one he won?
No,
I missed that one.
He always alleges that there's some type of election integrity issues, even for the ones that he wins. So,
but your contempt, and you're open about this. The lane you've chosen is to have contempt for President Trump, and my lane is to ask you that you are acknowledging that the people spoke. I think you'll acknowledge that there were enough votes and electoral votes that he's president. You acknowledge that, right?
Yeah, he's the president of the United States. Yes. 2,
do you acknowledge that he is doing the things that he campaigned to do when he ran for president?
Yes, on steroids, he's doing it. Absolutely.
So that's the part that scares me the most, is that at some point we have to say, well, that seems to be our country then. And thank God we're in a country where both sides you're supposed to be able to protest peacefully. You're supposed to be able to give your point of view, and you're supposed to be able to do it through the ballot box. And I touched on this on the show, and that was the whole issue I had with what happened in Minnesota, that if we're murdering politicians who disagree with the right or disagree with the left, then we are not a democracy. We've turned into something totally different. And I would assume that end of democracy, or the threat that we should be worried, does that not consume you more than any particular issue?
I think political violence on either side is unacceptable. I think, to your original point, I mean, we call this the find out part, right? I mean, this was the part about what Trump said he was going to do that he's delivering on. But what's interesting is it's sometimes people have to go through the personal impact of some type of trauma to be able to have empathy. That's just human nature for some. Some people are capable of empathy without having to actually sustain a loss or that trauma to be able to understand why a certain policy may not be palatable or may not be what you would want to have experience for yourself. So when we see people that have so much regret about the idea that they allowed this guy to be back in the Oval Office and to deliver on the promises that he made during his campaign, that he was going to do X, Y, and Z, and now he's doing these things, like that is obviously something where I struggle. Just if I could be you say nothing personal, but I'm going to be very personal. I struggle with this because yeah, there's a part of me that's like, you know what? You asked for this, you got it. I don't want to hear you bitching and complaining about it because it's exactly what you voted for. And to your point, he didn't stutter when he said it, right? He told you, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to deliver it. But then there's a part of me that says, but that's not who I am. And other people are being drawn into this huge kind of net of misery and terror that had nothing to do with this, that didn't vote for him, that obviously didn't want this to happen to their families or to their loved ones. And then you see what happens in places like LA, where I'd say if you had to use percentages, 99% of the protests that were happening were peaceful, lawful assemblies pursuant to the First Amendment right of free speech and expression and lawful assembly. But when you pull in the National Guard and you pull in the Marines and you escalate it the way that he's been doing it, how is anybody surprised when there's political violence? They shouldn't be. So this lies, all of this, what happened in Minnesota, what continues to happen with political violence, this really does lie squarely at the feet of Donald Trump. And by the way, not just him, other members of the GOP that don't have enough of a spine to say to him, look, here's another example. You want to clean up fraud, waste, and abuse? I'm all for it. That's the other thing, again. Another narrative that gets hijacked by the GOP that suggests that the Democrats don't want it. Of course, if you're just a person, you don't want fraud, waste, and abuse. But there has to be a process by which it happens, that you cannot just go summarily with a chainsaw, destroy the federal government, put hundreds of thousands of people out of jobs, and then be like, oh, sorry, you didn't get your cancer research, so you couldn't get your cure for this illness. Sorry, or oh, hey, I'm not going to help you, and you're not going to get your SNAP benefits. Tough shit. You can't do that. Like, you cannot do that. And so what's happening here is the same thing that's happening with the immigration, the same thing that's happening with our federal agencies, the same thing that's happening even with the ability to be able to protest. The escalation that's happening is lying squarely at the feet of Donald Trump and other members of the GOP that aren't saying this is not the way that we're supposed to do this. And I mean, I'm sorry that I had to be political about it, but he's the person who's sitting in the Oval Office. There are people that are around him that are implementing the policies that he wants. And I don't think...
But you have a solution, Katie. And it's important to point out to the audience what the solution is, because they hear it from me. In 2 minutes, please hear it from you. What is the solution if you're unhappy with what you see?
Vote. And people get mad at me when they're like,
so easy.
Oh, why do you say it like that? Because it really is that easy. If you don't like your judges, those judges are getting appointed by your senators, your presidents, and then they're going through a Senate confirmation process that involves your senators. I mean, those people didn't just walk in the door. They didn't just say, you know what, I'm going to stake my claim to this space in DC. They were voted into office. Now, listen, is there gerrymandering, David? Yes. Is there voter suppression? Yes. Is there a process where people are having their votes not have the same value as somebody else's vote? 100%. But I'm telling you right now, part of that happens too because judges rule on lawsuits that are brought, right, as to whether or not there's voter suppression or gerrymandering. Gerrymandering happens on legislative levels with people that are elected into office. So the problem we have is we're kind of past that point of saying maybe just go and vote, period, have a nice day. We have to kind of reverse a lot of the bad stuff that's happened. And we need to kind of get back to that place where just saying just go and vote is the cure-all for what it is.
Well, I think it's the start. And I could keep going, but we have to wrap up. First of all, thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for
being
letting me
live
have
early.
the space to do it.
No, it's unique for the audience on a sports business show to be able to hear two sides of a story and what's happening. And we want our audience to sort of choose for themselves what they believe, but we want to give them all the facts. And there are facts on all sides. And a lot of times in the media, you're only giving one side of a story. And so we try to give both sides and give our audience the benefit of the intellect and saying you choose. But then be careful what you choose, because you're going to get what you choose. And your last point to me was obviously so very important. It's not just about voting. It's understanding what you're voting for, who you're voting for, and why.
Yeah.
Katie, independent journalist, tell everyone about your show.
I'm on YouTube, Katie Phang News Channel. I'm also on Substack at Katie Phang. I'm on all social media at Katie Phang.
And you're a top 4. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks.
That was Katie Phang. Coca, I imagine are you sweating right now? Because that was about as political as we're going to get on this show, which is fine by me. You know, I'm always happy to do that. And Katie Phang is someone who I guess if you ask for the scouting report, people would say, oh, she's definitely anti-Trump. That is her lane. Her lane is that of someone who is left. And I would tell you, I've known Katie Phang for quite a while, and what she provides to you are facts. And people forget she dropped something in there that do not ignore. She was a prosecutor, and a really good one. She is not simply about being liberal or simply about saying, if you are not liberal, you are not a friend. That is not what she's about. It's about making you understand the legal implications of the things that are happening, because short of having a rule of law, you end up with the word she said, which is anarchy. And I'll raise my hand where I am politically. I don't want anarchy. You know, from a guy who has a safe room, a guy who is scared from time to time, I want there to be organized rule of law. So we're going to take a break. That was Katie Phang. When we come back, we're going to talk some stadium deals, and we're also going to get a chance to talk about Giancarlo Stanton for the first time in a while. Here we are watching the Yankees and the Angels, and I had not been paying attention because I knew that the 60-day, right around in June, is when you know that guys who have been hurt since the start of the season, they are eligible to come off the 60-day injured list. So let's say all of April, all of May, eligible to come off June 1. But by the time it gets to June 15th or 16th, I've already forgotten, because it's occurred to me that if players are out for the season, they're on the 60-day, and you're not going to think about them because they're not going to appear. I had not spoken to Giancarlo or thought about it, and then I realized that he was down in the minor leagues, and we did a story about it, that he was doing some rehab assignments. And he was hitting, I think he was buying the spread, and he spent 3 games, and he got a couple doubles, he got a couple hits, he had a whole thing. And all of a sudden, he was being called up to the big leagues. And the reason I was surprised by that is that I know Giancarlo, and he likes to find a rhythm in his swing. He likes to find his comfort zone. And it's better not to necessarily find it during the regular season. You either want to find it during spring training or you want to find it on rehab. But the Yankees called him up, and he played. And it obviously makes their lineup totally different. And of course, the ultimate irony of Giancarlo Stanton joining Aaron Judge in the lineup for the Yankees is they got shut out 1-0 in 11 innings by the LA Angels of Anaheim. It's almost too unbelievable how great our sport is. But here's the thing that the best lineup cannot be legislated against. The Yankees went 1 for 18 with runners in scoring position. Now, you know what the rules are of runners in scoring position, that any particular stretch of time, it may be amazing and it may be stinky. But over a long period of time, your average with runners in scoring position will be your average. It may not happen over a week, a month, but over a season, over 2 seasons, your average with runners in scoring position will be your average. The Yankees are not a 1 for 18 team or a 5 for their last 36, but you know that players slump and that having a player, even Aaron Judge, who even this far into June, he's not flirting with 400 anymore, but he's above 370. It's remarkable the season he's having. Even Judge goes through a season and will have a 5 for 36 drought. It's just going to happen. But when you call up Stanton and the mentality after he's been out, he's 35 years old, you want to get a World Series with him in uniform, you still haven't gotten one with Aaron Judge, you feel as though the window of G could be closing because he's 35, Aaron Judge is no spring chicken, all sorts of things are in your mind. It goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the first hour when it comes to how badly the Red Sox wanted to beat the Mariners last night after the Devers trade. You want Stanton back and you want to win a game after you've been swept by the Red Sox. You want Stanton back. You're playing the lowly Angels. You just want to get that game. And the way the Yankees lost it, where they've scored only 5 runs in their past 5 games, back-to-back shutouts, they're despondent. Now, the good news is their pitching has been way better than expected with Fried at the top and Rodon in the 2-hole because there's been no Cole, obviously, no Heel. They're done. Yankee fans, n'inquiète pas. Don't worry. Stanton is a positive for your team, not a negative. You will score again. I swear. It just doesn't feel that way. Let's go right back, if you don't mind, to Washington, D.C. Now, we spent some time talking with Katie Phang about the presidency. I want to switch to something else that's going on in D.C., and we were able to cover it, but now we get to talk about it again, and that is the new stadium deal for the Washington Commanders. Have you all learned over, what are we at, Coca? 1,200 and, God, we're up there. 1,298 regular episodes. Remarkable, Coca. That means we're 2 away from 1,300. How's that for my math? So you know that, what's the one thing you would say you've learned about the release of renderings or the announcement of a stadium deal? Show of hands to the audience, to the live audience. Person in seat 5. What would you say? Louder so they can hear you. Yes. Yes. None of them are true. That may be an exaggeration, but it's not totally. When the Commanders, when it was announced that there was a whole deal in Washington, D.C., and the fact is they had all the billions of dollars, they were doing a deal, everyone's holding hands, kumbaya, my Lord, bless this house, all the things. Well, guess what came out yesterday? Uh-oh. Small problem. There might be a delay. Because it turns out that the mayor of D.C., shockingly, can't do this on her own. Nope. You got to get the council. And wouldn't you know it, the D.C. council wants a couple things. Just a few, maybe, ditties. Ooh, I can't use that word anymore. Wow. 4869. The council members want just a few doodads, like a guarantee of a certain percentage of locally sourced jobs, let's say. Or maybe they want the refurbishment of some local football fields, let's just say. Or maybe they want a sales kicker if the team gets sold, let's just say. There could be myriad things the DC council members want. And what they're saying is, we can't approve this at our next council meeting. There's way too much to discuss. So therefore, we're going to float some changes to this deal. We're going to talk about parking a little differently. We may ask for more rent than you asked for, Ms. Mayor. Why? Because when we run for re-election, we get to say that we put our finger on the man. We stuck it to him. The problem with these public financing deals is the only time they're done is when there is online a fully executed agreement approved by the local county commission, city council, and it's available, signed twice by you, the team, and by someone who has the authority to sign on behalf of the public. So it's not just someone sitting around in the 12th row. It's someone with that authority. So they've got to figure out in D.C. what to do. Why? Because there's another little nugget you may have learned in the Washington Post, which is that the Commanders have an out if there is a delay that threatens their timeline. Just think about this for a second. Does it sound at all familiar to you? Do you remember what happened in Tampa? And the delay was hurricane related, but they were going to have a new building in St. Petersburg. They announced it. They had renderings. Everything was going great. And then you remember that there was a delay, and whether there was a delay was under a question, but then Tampa walked away. Why do I say that people shouldn't worry in D.C.? Because Josh Harris doesn't want to move the team out of Washington the way Stu Sternberg wants to move out of Tampa or out of St. Petersburg. Josh Harris is highly motivated to get a deal done, so he is not going to take a small delay and say that is a deal breaker, we're done here. Instead, what Josh Harris is doing is the following. Hi, my name's Josh. What did you want again? Hi, my name's Josh. What did you want again? Now, it's not buying votes. It's called negotiating. Hi, my name's Josh. Wait, what? No. All right, I'll put it on the list. Boom, you have a list of deal issues. You then go back to the negotiators that the mayor uses and say, listen, you want the following 4 things. I can give you 2 at most. I can give you a part of 3, and I'm a no on 4. Then you go back to the council and you meet with them, either through your lobbyists or through yourself, and you see, did you give enough to get the yes vote? Do we have a deal? If so, we want to convene a meeting and we want to get to a vote immediately. You cannot get to a vote till you have the votes, because the worst thing that can happen when you've announced a done deal is that you bring it to a vote and it gets voted down. The only time the D.C. Council is going to vote on a new Washington Commanders stadium is when the Washington Commanders and Roger Goodell know before the vote is happening that the vote will be a yes. Watch as this unveils itself. Congrats to Major League Baseball. They have figured out a way to give you some positive Bud Selig-like attendance announcements. You know I'm just kidding, Rob. But the commissioner has every incentive for attendance to be good right now. Every incentive. Keep in mind, several things in baseball are happening. Number 1, 2 teams are playing in minor league / spring training facilities. You've got the Aths at a AAA park, and you've got the Rays in a spring training facility in Tampa where the Yankees have spring training. Keep in mind, you've got a team in Miami where I am half responsible, which I shouldn't say after 8 years, but there is a true attendance problem, and they are not drawing. However, MLB is able to announce that Father's Day was MLB's highest average Sunday attendance since 2008. They were able to announce that the total of 1.7 million fans was the second largest 45-game weekend in 17 years. 45-game weekend is 15 games a weekend, meaning everybody played, no rainouts, no nothing. That's how it's called, the 45-game weekend. You can have all teams scheduled, but bad weather, all of a sudden you're playing 15, 14, 13, and all of a sudden it's, 42, not 45. And so you compare 45-game weekends and you say, wow, 1.7 million fans haven't done it. Why does this matter right this second? This matters because MLB is in the middle of negotiating with TV partners to replace ESPN. They are in the middle of heading to a collective bargaining session where that is going to start. Preparation is happening now, and the actual bargaining will start no later than next summer. And MLB has different goals with different constituencies. But sometimes you make announcements because you choose one of your constituencies over the other. It would be wise for the collective bargaining agreement for MLB not to have higher attendance, for not to have more revenue, for not to be the rich and the richer negotiating with players who then ask for the sun, the moon, the stars. If you get to walk into a CBA negotiation and say, man, we are struggling, this is not great, and you're going to have to bear some of the responsibility and some of the brunt for our struggle. That's just how it goes. That's one side. But boy, is it nice to walk into a room with a bunch of TV executives and people representing the different networks and say, healthy? Healthy. We are so healthy. We're so robust. We're aging backwards, baby. We are in such good shape that we're drawing fans. And take a look at our numbers. Take a look at the reach we have. And you want to talk about having the summer landscape to yourself and the content that 30 teams provide, heading toward 32. Wink, wink, wink. Think about what you're getting. Think about this package. And while it may only be for 3 years, just you wait. You're going to be right at the table to renew because we are strong. That's a good narrative, isn't it? And that's the narrative with all these press releases that you're seeing about attendance, about ratings, about all the positive things in baseball, about time of game. Do you think it's a coincidence that time of game is down and down and down as they're going into TV negotiations? I'm just throwing it out there. Don't forget, it's the TV networks who have no interest in the 4-hour game. None. So what do? You make sure that they're all quick games, 9 innings, ghost runner. Think about every rule change that's happened. Let's go. Give the broadcasters what they want. It's not about the people going to games. It's not about the people who are watching the games. It's not about the fans of any kind. Not about the players. Not about the executives. It's about the TV folk. That's for sure. Congrats, though, to MLB. That's good. Anytime you can, hey, I can make a press release out of a stomachache. Attendance is a funny thing. Boy, did we read some stuff this weekend about the Club World Cup. I'm sensitive to it. We don't talk about it as much as we should, though with DraftKings we do. Club World Cup is underway. Here's the concern. We talked that not enough people went to see Messi play. But now we've had a full weekend of games this past weekend. And there were some moments that were okay, some venues that were fine, some venues not so good. Let's talk about one in specific. We can talk about Hard Rock Stadium. We can talk about the fact that it was half sold. We can talk about the fact that Atlanta, which is supposed to be the place for soccer in the United States, and they played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You could talk about that they announced only 22,000 people, and that stadium fits 42,000 for soccer and 71,000 for the NFL. So plenty of room for seats. We could talk about the 55,000 people at Hard Rock who showed up for the non-Messi game. But what are we really talking about? Why are these articles being written? What's the purpose of drawing the attention to attendance? The World Cup, the Club World Cup is now. The World Cup is coming next year. These facilities have agreed to have grass in their facilities. They've agreed to do things for FIFA that would make a grown man blush. And they do it all in the name of being a host city and then a host stadium for World Cup games. Club World Cup is something that stadiums are doing as, hey, look at us, we got this. It's all going to be smooth. It's all going to be well attended. It's all going to be raucous. There is going to be passion. We are going to make the World Cup, to your broadcasters around the world, we are going to make the World Cup spectacular here in North America. Club World Cup comes in and says, we love where your head's at. Get yourself ready for the World Cup, just like we're getting people excited for the World Cup. Get your stadium ready. Put in grass for a couple days for the games, and let's see how good you are. Do you think that FIFA had an expectation that these venues would sell out? When you look at pricing, when you look at logistics, when you look at level of care or concern, it should have been clear to you that FIFA knew, should have known, and is fine about the perceived attendance issues that are being written about nonstop here in the US, and frankly have been written about in that way for decades. It's like you're obsessed with it. How many people, you want to know why I lied about attendance, Coca? Because of you. Your obsession when you see a box score. 4,869 people were at yesterday's game. Oh, that doesn't sound very fun or interesting. And I'm getting pictures of half or full empty stadiums. Well, we are currently 40 and 90, but we're drawing 30,000 people. Yay, us. Is that really the plan? The better one is this. When you have a Club World Cup match or a football game or a baseball game or any event, instead of looking at the attendance, which we know can be manipulated totally, I want the new announcement to be, and this is I'm going to get criticized for the take, Coca, but just hear me out while I give it. I want announced attendance to be finished. Too stressful. Took too much time for me to figure out the math. I want there to be full disclosure and an announcement of your gate revenue. That's what I want. Now, teams will say, I can never release my gate revenue. Why not? There's a million other places that you're still hiding. You're not giving your competitors anything that matters on the field. But I want to know average ticket price. I want to know how much money you are grossing, not netting, because there's a ton of expenses. I just want to see gross ticket revenue announced after every game, because then I would have been screwed. The old David, well, 20,000 people. My God, your overall ticket revenue is like $20,000. How did that happen, Mr. Dollar Day? Or my announced attendance is 5,000. Wow, good job. Looked like you had an ATP of $100. Remember all the math I've done? Because it stops the embarrassment of these articles about attendance. Can you imagine, Coca, that the Club World Cup is going on and people are obsessed over the attendance in the venues? What kind of country are we? The obsessed kind, it would appear. The good news is there's been a bunch of quotes that have come out, a bunch of people who are trying to tell you everything's fine. There's nothing to see here. My view is whenever I read someone tell me everything's fine, I knee-jerk automatically assume that nothing's fine. It's the equivalent of my flight attendant running off the plane during turbulence, and people in like 14A are like, hey, are we okay? And I'm sitting there in 5D saying, don't know, but man, she looks panicked. You can't host the first weekend of Club World Cup games and all of a sudden act like you're panicked. I want you to be strong. I want you to have a statement that says this is successful beyond our wildest dreams. The opportunity for these clubs to get into this tournament and to have the type of local support that we have and national support that we have, this is perfect. That's one way to do it. Of course, there's another way to do it. And I want to call out Matthew Coca because he always comes up with the ors. FIFA could have come out and said, our bad. We didn't mean to schedule an afternoon game in LA, an afternoon game in Atlanta. We didn't mean to have the LA team play to start with. We could have been smarter about that. But what's the fun of that, Coca? The fun of that where you're going to blame game times? Game times? No chance, toilet pants. I think you embrace it and go right in and then tell me what your revenue is. Tell me how wrong I was or not. Either way, you could look right in the camera and just say, it's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.